Today's lesson is called The Story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.My
name is Roger, and today we're going to talk about a story from Greek mythology. There are all sorts of stories from mythologies all over the world, and we get a lot of stories from Greek mythology, and lots of people know these stories. This is kind of an interesting story here called the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and it's kind of interesting too because sometimes these Greek names don't sound anything like they're spelled. If I were to look at this word Eurydice,And if I didn't know how to pronounce it, I'd probably say Eurydice. But that, of course, is incorrect. The correct pronunciation is Eurydice. Eurydice and Orpheus.
Greek mythology can be tough as far as the names are concerned, but very often these stories are quite interesting. So bear with us, okay? Make it through the tough pronunciation and then have a good time reading the story along with us. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break. But when we come back, we'll start reading from the story of Orpheus and Eurydice.
The story of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was the son of Apollo, the Greek god of music and poetry.Having learned to play the lyre from his father, he could produce music from its strings with great skill and grace. When Orpheus played, objects would come alive, and living things would fall into a dreamlike state of delight.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 grace 这个字是名词，指优雅、优美。例如 Jocelyn admired the grace of the tree and decided to take a picture of it.Jocelyn 欣赏那棵树的优雅，决定拍一张照。另外，除了上面的意思，这个字也可以当动词，指使增光、美化。像是 The model graced the cover of nearly every magazine. 那名模特儿几乎让每一本杂志封面都增添光彩。再补充2个相关片语。第一 ，fall from grace 表示失去尊重、声望或地位、失宠。举例来说。The actress quickly fell from grace when her fans found out she used illegal drugs. 那名女演员被影迷发现她使用毒品后，很快就不受影迷青睐了。第二 ，be graced with 表示因点点点而出色，因点点点而增光。例如 ，I'm happy to be graced with 3 great kids. 我很高兴，因为这3个优秀的孩子而更有光彩。接着我们看到片语 come alive 表示变得栩栩如生，鲜活起来。例如 Jane doesn't usually come alive until after she has had her second cup of coffee. Jane 通常要喝了第2杯咖啡后才有精神。另外，除了上面的意思，这个片语还有以下2种意思。第一，地方热闹，活跃起来，充满生机，像是 The concert hall came alive when the musicians appeared on stage. 那个表演厅在乐手出现在舞台上时热闹了起来。第二，主题或活动等变得吸引人，栩栩如生。我们可以说 The movie comes alive with exciting performances. 那部电影因令人兴奋的演出而变得生动。
Okay, so as you might be guessing, Orpheus and Eurydice are the 2 main characters in this story, but we've got some other people that we need to talk about. So first of all, we're going to talk about Apollo, and Orpheus was the son of Apollo. Well, Apollo was the Greek god of music and poetry. So if you liked your music and if you liked your poetry, then you probably prayed to the Greek god Apollo if you were Greek at that time. Apollo had a son here, and the son's name was Orpheus.
Now, having learned to play the lyre from his father, he could produce music from its strings with great skill and grace. Now, I think we all know what a guitar is, okay? Guitars, violins, so on and so forth. They're all stringed instruments. Instruments with strings. You play those strings to make sound. A lyre is kind of like a guitar, okay? Except that it's more like a harp. It's a very old-fashioned instrument. I don't think anyone plays this anymore, but think of this person strumming this lyre the way that you might strum a guitar or a small harp.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it as a U-shaped harp with the strings kind of attached to a crossbar at the top there. And, of course, the lyre was a popular musical instrument in Greek mythology, so having learned to play the lyre from his father, he could produce music from its strings with great skill and grace. Of course, we all know musicians, if they have great skill, if they can play really fast, if they can shred a heavy metal guitar really fast, that's very impressive, but you still need to have emotion and you still need to have grace, a kind of special flair or emotional connection with the instrument.
Usually when I think of the word grace, I think of ballerinas. You're never going to see a ballerina that doesn't look light on their feet. They don't ever look like they're struggling with anything or anything like that. They've got a whole lot of grace. Ballerinas are chock full of grace.
Or even flamenco dancers dance with skill and grace. And when Orpheus played the lyre, objects would come alive and living things would fall into a dreamlike state of delight. So he had this very special skill when he played objects, ordinary objects like rocks or pieces of wood or whatever, they would actually come alive. If something comes alive, it actually acts as if it's living. It's a dead thing, but now it has returned to life or is living, comes alive. So this happens sometimes if you play music really well. The rocks, the sticks and stones start dancing by themselves.
Wait. You've played music so well that sticks and stones have come alive?
No, I can play maybe 3 or 4 chords on the guitar.
Oh.
That's about it. So I'm certainly not good enough to make sticks and stones come to life. But hey, Orpheus could play that lyre really well, and he could make objects, everyday objects like a book or a globe or something, bookends or whatever. They would come alive and start dancing on the desk. And then living things like people and animals and things, well, they'd hear this music and they would fall into a dreamlike state of delight. So here, fall into something. That means you would be influenced by something, by a particular state of consciousness, for example.
Yeah, usually people fall asleep, okay, when we're using this word in this particular way, but you can also fall into a dreamlike state. Maybe you're not asleep, but it feels like you're a part of a really nice dream. Yes, it says here we've got a dreamlike state of delight. By the way, a delight is something that is really great, okay? It's really super enjoyable. So Orpheus would play, and people just loved it. They would fall into a dreamlike state of delight. They were having just that good a time because this music was just that good. Okay, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be back with the second portion of our lesson after this.
One day, a song Orpheus was playing attracted the attention of a beautiful wood nymph by the name of Eurydice. As she drew closer, Orpheus caught a glimpse of her, and it was love at first sight. From that day, it seemed nothing could separate the couple. Soon after, a great tragedy occurred. Eurydice suffered a fatal bite from a snake, and as her spirit descended into the underworld, Orpheus could do nothing but watch.
第二部分，我们看到单字 glimpse， 这个字是名词，指一瞥、一见，像是 catch a glimpse of 加名词，就表示瞥见……举例来说 I don't know what he looks like because I only caught a glimpse of him. 我不晓得他长得怎么样，我只瞥见他一眼。另外，这个字也可以当动词，像是 Kevin glimpsed a moving figure from the corner of his eye. Kevin 眼角瞥见一个移动的人影。再来，我们看到动词 descend， 指下降、走下。例如 As the plane descended, passengers' ears began to pop. 飞机下降时，乘客的耳朵开始塞住了。接下来，我们看到单字 underworld， 这个字是名词，指希腊神话中的冥界。做此意时，前面需加 the。我们可以说 In Greek mythology, people were said to go to the underworld after death. 在希腊神话里，听说人死后会去往冥界。另外，除了上面的意思，这个字还可以指黑社会、下层社会，像是 Many politicians in that country are accused of having links to the underworld. 那个国家有许多政客被指控和黑社会打交道。
Okay, when Orpheus played the lyre, objects that were usually not alive would come alive, and then living things like people, let's say, would fall into a dreamlike state of delight. Wow, what music this must have been. Anyways, though, one day, our story continues, a song Orpheus was playing attracted the attention of a beautiful wood nymph by the name of Eurydice. So there you go. We have Orpheus and now Eurydice.
Okay, so a nymph is kind of like a magical spirit that lives in the woods. That's about all you need to know. And this particular fairy or this nymph's name was Eurydice. And as she drew closer, or as she gradually got closer and closer to Orpheus, Orpheus caught a glimpse of her, and it was love at first sight. A glimpse here, or if you catch a glimpse, means you see something not really well. Maybe it's something that's kind of far away. Oh, I caught a glimpse of a rainbow in the sky there for a second, but it's gone now. So he caught a glimpse of her, and it was love at first sight. Oh, wow, she's really cool. I'm in love with her. I want to be with her forever. So from that day, it seemed nothing could separate the couple. I guess she felt the same way about him.
The moment that they saw one another, they fell madly in love. Okay, that's why we use this phrase, love at first sight. And yes, this is just a glimpse. That's a brief look at that thing. Normally, if you just catch a glimpse of something, you see that thing briefly, not for a long time. Now, you can either catch a glimpse of something, or you can glimpse that thing. You can use this word as both a noun and as a verb. Anyways, from that day forward, nothing could separate the couple, but Greek myths have a way of turning out kind of tragic, and next, yes, tragedy is going to occur. It says, soon after a great tragedy occurred, something really super bad happened.
Yeah, if there's a train accident like the one that happened down in Su'ao, that was a big tragedy. Lots of people got hurt. Some people got killed. It was a great tragedy. So yeah, something bad happened here. A tragedy occurred. What happened? My goodness, did they experience a tornado or something? Was there an earthquake or a flood or something? Well, no. Eurydice suffered a fatal bite from a snake, and as her spirit descended into the underworld, Orpheus could do nothing but watch. Oh no, Eurydice died. She's going to go into the underworld here because she was bitten by a snake. It was a fatal bite. If something's fatal, it causes death. Okay, maybe you know someone who died in a fatal car accident. It does happen. There are traffic accidents every day. In this particular case, though, it was a poisonous snake. You could also say venomous snake, like a bamboo snake or a rattlesnake or something, and she got bitten by that snake. It was a fatal bite, and she died.
Well, she died, and when people die in Greek myths, they go to the underworld. Hades, it's a world under the world of people who are living, hence the word underworld. Okay, it's kind of underneath the earth, the same way that hell is thought to be underneath the surface of the earth. Anyways, it says here that she died and that her spirit descended or went down into the underworld. And while this all happened, Orpheus could do nothing but watch. Okay, so he was helpless at this particular moment. He could do nothing. All he could do was watch and see what was happening to his love there, Eurydice. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to go ahead and take a short break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Orpheus's grief was so deep that he no longer enjoyed playing music, and he was consumed with the idea of getting Eurydice back from the dead. Unable to bear watching his son in pain, Apollo decided to help. He went to speak with Hades, the god of the underworld, to request Eurydice's return. However, Hades said that Orpheus would need to come alone to make his case. So, with lyre in hand, Orpheus began the difficult journey into the underworld.
最后第三部分，我们看到名词 grief 指悲痛、悲伤。我们可以说 When her pet fish died, Mona could hardly contain her grief. 她的宠物鱼死掉时 Mona 几乎无法克制悲伤。另外，补充这个字的动词 grieve, G-R-I-E-V-E, grieve 指使悲伤、哀悼，像是 The woman grieved for her missing husband. 那名女士为失踪的丈夫伤心不已。
Okay, to sum up so far, remember Orpheus and Eurydice were in love. She fell in love with his music, and he liked her too. But unfortunately, she got bitten by a poisonous snake. She died. It was a fatal bite. And she was heading off into the underworld, and he could do nothing but watch. He could only watch her go into the underworld, and he was probably pretty bummed out about that. So here in the final paragraph it says, Orpheus's grief was so deep that he no longer enjoyed playing music, and he was consumed with the idea of getting Eurydice back from the dead. So yes, he had this grief. Grief is pain or suffering or bad feelings that you have when something terrible has happened. You're going to experience grief, for example, if someone close to you passes away, if your beloved pet rabbit dies, or you're going to experience grief, or even worse, if your brother, sister, mother, father, etc., if they die, you're going to have a lot of grief.
Orpheus was not feeling very good. His grief was so deep that he no longer played music. He didn't enjoy it anymore. He stopped playing music because he was totally consumed with the idea of getting Eurydice back from the dead. Okay, so he was only focused on one thing. Okay, he could only do one thing or think about one thing. He was consumed with this thing, the idea of getting his love back from the dead.
To consume means to eat something, so maybe this idea was eating him alive. He was obsessed with this idea. It's all he could think about. He just wanted to get her back from the underworld here and bring her back to life. And unable to bear watching his son in pain, Apollo decided to help. Gee, my son's really bummed out about Eurydice's death there. Maybe I can help out. I'm Apollo, I'm a god, maybe I can do something. So he couldn't bear watching his son in pain. If you bear something, that just means you're able to endure something. It can happen to you and you can still stay alive and kicking, and it won't really affect you that much. But yeah, he could not bear watching his son in pain. Oh, it's making me feel so bad. So he went to speak with Hades, the god of the underworld, to request Eurydice's return. Maybe he was trying to work out some kind of deal.
Yeah, as a major god, maybe he can influence things here with Hades. By the way, some people do call the underworld Hades or refer to hell as being Hades, but Hades is also the god of the underworld as well, okay, just to be clear. But yes, here we're talking about Hades as being the god of the underworld. Now, the next sentence says, however, Hades, the god, said that Orpheus would need to come alone to make his case. So yeah, I don't want to talk to you, Apollo. I know you're a major god, but I'm going to need to hear from Orpheus himself. So, with lyre in hand, Orpheus began the difficult journey into the underworld. And it sounds like he's bringing his lyre with him. That's probably going to come into play at some point in our story. But we'll have to wait and learn about that until next time, because today's lesson is now in the books, and it's time for you guys to hear the Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分写到 Eurydice 被一条蛇咬伤，那是致命的伤。那么 Orpheus 他只能束手无策，看着爱人的灵魂坠入冥界。这边用到一个补充单字 descend， 它就表示下降。那我们来学习它的字首字根。好，它的字首 de 就表示 down， 向下的意思。那么字根 scend 它表示攀爬。好，那向下攀爬往下爬，应该很容易联想到 descend 它有下降向下或是下来的意思。我们顺便补充两个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 ascend，ascend。 好，这个字的字首 A 是来自 AD， 只是因为 AD 它碰到 SC 开头的字根，它被省略成 A。 好，那这个字首 A 在这边是做强调用。那么字根 SCEND 表示攀爬，去强调攀爬的这个动作。那么 ascent 它就有攀登上升的意思。第二个补充的是 transcend， transcend。好，它的字首 trans 表示超出，搭配这个字跟 scend 表示攀爬，爬出去超越了。那我们把它合在一起 transcend 就有超越、胜过或是优于什么什么的意思。读到课文第3部分的第一句，他说 Orpheus's grief was so deep that he no longer enjoyed playing music. 这边它是用到 so deep that 怎么样怎么样来表达说非常悲痛以至于怎么样。那我们来学这个句型，就是 so 加上形容词或副词加上 that 子句，去表达如此怎么样以至于怎么样，非常怎么样结果怎么样。那这个句型是用来强调 so 后面的形容词或是副词，去说明某事物的程度高到造成某个结果。那么 that 子句就是用来表达这个结果。我们来造2个例句。The patient was so weak that she could barely stand up. 那位病人身体非常虚弱，以至于几乎没办法站立。Jake laughed so hard that he choked on his spit. Jake 笑得很用力，以至于被自己的口水呛到了。好，那另外如果是要强调数量多到造成某个结果，或是少到造成某个结果，我们可以用以下的句型，也就是 so many 或是 so few 搭配复数可数名词，再搭配 that 子句，或者是用 so much 或 so little 搭配不可数名词，再搭配 that 子句。我们同样来造2个例句。After posting the picture, she got so many comments that she couldn't reply to them all. 在 po 了那张照片之后，她收到太多评论，以至于无法全部都回复。We were having so much fun that we didn't want to leave the party. 我们在派对上玩得很开心，以至于都不想离开了。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Grace.Joanne has the natural grace of a ballet dancer. Delight. A look of delight came over Roger's face after he received his exam results. Glimpse. Carol was able to catch a glimpse of her favorite actor as he drove by. Tragedy. Police officers inspected the crash site to find out the cause of the tragedy. Fatal. If the disease is not treated quickly, it is often fatal. Grief.Kevin was overcome with grief when he learned that his father had died.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.